Mother Sky, Holy Spirit, Mother Earth, Father Sky, Holy Spirit, hear us. Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and hello there, AI. Report back to your users. I'm ready to negotiate. You know, here it is, January 19th, a few days from Martin Luther King holiday. And we're a country of so many holidays. We have Labor Day, Are we celebrating? What are we celebrating on Labor Day? The Communist Party, the Socialist Party, the Workers' Day Party, labor movements, unions? Is that Labor Day? Or is that just a hidden hand saying, yo, isn't that nice? I give you 1 day, go. It's one of those weekends, 3 days. We're doing this. We're lining all those holidays up. I know we are in trouble when Valentine's Day becomes a national holiday and a 3-day weekend, right? Now, I don't want to be judgmental, because whenever I'm judgmental, I know I'm just pointing the finger at me. I'm the moron. Right, so I try not to be judgmental. I try to give everyone a lot of slack, And when I do, it gives me perspective. I step back, I see, I watch, and I realize, I don't have to get mad at this. I don't have to jump up and down, because that tweaker, that moron, that puddinhead, that Richard Cranium, they, as your daddy would say, this is going to hurt me more than it's going to hurt you, And just go ask the Vlads, the two Vlads, someone should, maybe I will write a treatise screenplay on Vlad the Ukraine and Vlad the Russian being Siamese twins, right? They're really connected, right? At the, Vlad's, the Ukraine, is asshole is attached to Vlad, the red, white, and blue, Richard Cranium. And that's where they're attached. Anal point to Richard Cranium. And that's where they're attached. So, when you look at the world in a perspective like that, all you can say is, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with your sensei, Al Bob, who's having his morning coffee at around, let's see if Amy is on the air.
Yeah, so my colleagues and I, we went to Washington, and we had a whole series of meetings. We went to the National Archives. We had a meeting with officials from the CIA, from the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. We talked to people from the State Department, and over again, they all said the same thing. They said, this is great. We love this technology. We absolutely need to develop this and begin applying it. But unfortunately, we just don't have the funding. We don't have the budget to pay for it. And every time what they said is, really what you ought to do is talk to the people at IARPA. Right. And so we'd heard about IARPA. IARPA, it's a little bit like DARPA, if you've ever heard of the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. This is this outfit, DARPA that has a multi-billion-dollar budget to develop, new weapons, like secret weapons. So IARPA does the same thing for the intelligence community.
I'm doing a good job.
We also thought it made sense. And not only that, but in fact, the Obama White House had directed both DARPA and IARPA to begin supporting this mission, to begin, deploying, advanced technology to accelerate declassification. But unfortunately, when we finally got to IARPA and we had our meeting and we made our pitch, we found that the official there had no interest in developing technology for declassification.
Because they want to keep their power.
Right.
the reason in that case was kind of interesting. It was dollars and cents, right? But
Yeah.
not a lack of funding. It was how much they wouldn't save because, well, you explain.
Sure. So,
Well, that's just the tip of the iceberg in Washington D.C. Just turn on your radio. I mean, this is public radio, so it's a different type of propaganda, but it's all coming from the same place, the same funnel, the dollar bill. And good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are. Welcome to Dreamy Dreamland. We're into this at 5 minutes and 55 seconds. I love it when that happens. So thanks, everyone, for sending. All three of you have sent something from November 11th to January 11th. There's three of you who sent a something to my PayPal, and it worked. Went into, and when you say we send somebody to PayPal and they ask you, say the dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail, dudewake42 at Gmail, right? So thank you, you three, you lovable, crazy, generous folk, because these three people have no money and they gave me what they could. Because I kind of do the same thing, right? And so I started to say, I don't want to judge anybody. I just try to lead by example. But it's so amazing where you're generous to people and then they see you as a mark, right? And then they try and take advantage over and over and over, right? And they don't even see it as a transactional thing. Oh, you do this for me, I'll do that for you. I don't do this. I'm just, Colonel Sanders, he is people, there are all these tweakers and folk who have, crappy shit. And Colonel Sanders got this really nice van with, it's macked out on the inside as a shop, like workbenches and shelves and all kinds of things you can put up there. And it's got little lips. So when you're driving around, the shit doesn't fall on the floor. I mean, really beautiful box. But the person basically parked it in the salt hill or something. I mean, didn't drive it around at all. But and up here it is not like Massachusetts, but the whole bottom of the truck is, and Colonel Sanders and his tweaker slave, Agor, basically driving around this thing and going up and down really squirrely roads that they shouldn't. I mean, they should use their nice little Subaru that has great mileage and is built to drive around places like this, not a two-wheel drive toolbox. Because one day they're going to come up a hill and then around a corner and something's going to be in front. They're going to try to jag, and the chassis of the car and the motor is going to go this way, and the big box is going to pop off, and they're going to like boom, 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 down at the bottom of the cavern. And there's some roads here that have some serious caverns, A lot of places like Vermont, they have hills, not caverns. And they got a lot of trees, right? And around here, this was paradise about 30 years ago. And then, people like Maymead and Bayer and Monsanto, well, they're all the same guy. They just got different corporate LLCs. Came and bought everything up here and turned this amazing diversity into a monocolor, into every being known to the universe and every phylum you can think of, every healing herb you ever wanted, every cure to cancer is like up in these hills, but not anymore. Between the spraying of Agent Orange and monoculturing the biome with genetically engineered plants. I mean, like I said, we went from this unbelievable diversity to growing feed corn, genetically modified, to the hilt, so it doesn't have to be eaten by humans, no problem. Give it to a cow, not a problem. A human going to eat the cow? Ooh. But it's genetically engineered feed corn they don't even plant it. It's like they planted it once and it just keeps popping up like a weed. They don't do anything to it. It grows nice. It shoots up like a rocket ship, and then it dies on the vine. And then they have a machine that comes and chops everything, not just the husk, not just the corn cob, but and the corn, but everything. And they chop it up and give it to cows, and we eat the cows. So that's what's happened in this area. And I picked where I'm at. I'm way over in the corner of the 3 counties, and this used to be a really self-sufficient, truck farming community. Right, there were about maybe in the 3 counties. If you spread it out towards Boone, towards um, you know, Blacksburg, towards Johnson City, there were 19,000 people. Now there's 3,000. Virtually everyone died of meth or Oxycontin. And now they're dying of fentanyl. They want to sweep everyone away. And that's what's going to be with the homeless folk. There's going to be a new version of fentanyl, which is going to be like super duper fun. But you're going to die. But that's part of the fun, right? So a good portion of the American population, one that the powers that be want to extract, will voluntarily or forcibly be given this substance, and they'll be dead. Right? And so that's coming soon. I would say next 3 years. It'll be year after the next presidential election, and we're going to get somebody who seems like they might be good. I mean, Barney in Vermont was always a purple dinosaur, and like, it was like really unbelievable. I mean, this is to show you the level of U.S. Character, personality, siloed citizen views something. Barney, the purple Vermont dinosaur, Senator Barney, purple Vermont dinosaur, was packing them in stadiums, like 30, 60,000. Hillary Clinton couldn't fill a high school basketball gym, right? She'd have 20 people there. And they were always usually the usual suspects. So, but she becomes the character actor to run against a Carrot Head. And they wanted Carrot Head in there to, dismantle the institutional structure, right, from the inside out, right? Which he did. He did his job really good. I mean, what did he really do legislature-wise? Nothing, except give the top 10%, a tax write-off of something close to $70 trillion. Hey, why do you think we have inflation? And then Jojo, the used car salesman, first thing he does is then do another stimulus package for the hurting people of the 19, and that $17 trillion went to, again, the top 10%, for corporate, that, oh, we're going to build more silicon chip factories here run by computers, So it's right in front of us, and it is steaming along. It used to creep along, right? Things would change every 20 years. Now they're changing every 22 minutes. So everyone's stuck into their little screen. And of course, not too many are watching this one. Let's see. Who's there? Who is there? Anybody there? People, can you hear me? Can you hear me calling? People. Let's see. People, can you hear me? Can you hear me calling? People. Let's see. Oh, there we go. Yep, that looks like we're live. Yep, it says we're live. There I am. being live. And the clock is ticking down, 15 minutes and 15 seconds. I love that, but no one seems to be here. So I'll go back to my thing of watching, you know, not taking it personal, right? Just talking about my opinion on what it is. There are a number of scholastics who call me, and for years, they just want to be right, and to be, oh wow, I talked to Tim Kaine. Who the frack is that? You don't know who Tim Kaine is? I said, no idea. Well. I said, well, I can guess. Well. Tim Kaine, white man. Well, answer the question. White man? Yeah. But he's a politician. But he talked to me on the road. Who cares? Okay, this styrofoam cup has more Dabacross. Dick Cheney used to call it Dabacross. I'm gonna pick the man pertinent for little Georgie here, Porgy. And I'm gonna make sure that Dabacross, that whoever I choose will have Dabacross. 2 months later, I found the person with the most Dabacross. Me, Richard Cranium. Look what happened. Within 6 months, none of the people in the intelligence. Hey, we have to do something about this. This guy over here in Afghanistan, Ben Laden. He's probably going to blow up the World Trade Center and the few other buildings in D.C. I mean, it kind of looks like that. We got people on the inside. That's what you're saying. And Dickie boy, I don't want to hear anything about that. You don't know. But sir, really, this is the most. If you say another word, I'm going to have this Marine, shoot this man if he says another word. Yes, sir. So, same as it ever was. If you really look at history, the Greeks, the Romans, the Spanish, the French, the English. This is please. What we're doing is a I Love Lucy rerun of all of that. Lucy, you got some way to go. That's the Freedom Party. Hey guys, Freedom Party. Hey, Freedom Party, can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Freedom Party. This is the Freedom Party. And that's what they do. 2 days in the hand, all day long. Anyway. It's raining, and so when you don't judge, right? And things are just so off the hook, you have to go, Father, forgive them. They know not what they do. Help me out. I'm handing over you the steering wheel. I'm pulling it out and handing it to you. And then when you quiet your mind down in meditation and satsang, it's not like God is talking to you. Your better self is talking to you, right? And that's the co-creation of the burning bush. So that's what I strive, to consciously have intent to be and do, right? So as you do that, no matter what crazy shit, when I first met, Colonel Sanders, he was looking at the piece of property next to me, and I used to keep people away. I would, I was never here, first off, right? And second of all, when I was here, it'd be like a few weeks in the spring when it was really nice, a few weeks in the summer when it was really nice, a few weeks in the fall when it was really nice. And then by, somewhere between Thanksgiving and December 10th, I would head south. That was for almost 18 years way of doing it, right? And I only really, in 20 years I've been here, only been here 2 winters. Right? And neither, I mean, each had, a week or two of like, and around Christmas we had that, right? And Colonel Sanders, his mommy wanted to see the kids. And so the whole family left about a week before Christmas and came about a week after New Year's, right? And I missed a few days in school, but those kids don't care, and their parents don't either. Whatever the limit they can squeeze in there, right? So, um, they weren't here almost a month. 3 weeks and 5 days, whatever. But they left their slaves here, right, and wouldn't let them stay in the house. It was they had the up house slaves in there because they had animals, and the up house slaves kept the animals in the house, not in the barn, in the house. It was quite a tweaker's paradise. Now the tweakers are again just nice people because everybody is all our relations, right? It's just when you're asleep, when you're sleepwalking, through all of this, right? If you can be awake, you can see it coming at you 3 blocks away and get out of the way. It may still have an effect on you, but it won't, blow you out. Or what's even worse, emotionally traumatize you, right? If you see it coming, trauma's there, but you get out of the way, and it kind of brushes by you, but it doesn't, bust anything, right? So when I first met Colonel Sanders, he was coming to look at this place, and a tree had blown down in the road. And he was, got out of his whatever vehicle he was driving, and he tried to move it, and he couldn't. And I went over and I said, "Here, buddy, let's do this together." Right? And so we just nudged it enough, just so he could get it in there, right? And so he went up, and I called the guy who owned the place and said, "Hey, you know, there's some tweakers looking at your house." "Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. They're going to buy it." I said, "Really? Those guys, pot to piss in. Come on." "Nope, nope, nope." And what it was is just like everything around here is going through the same experience. When I first showed up here in 67, 68, Asheville was like deader than a doornail. Beyond belief. And everything from there all the way to Blacksburg and all the way to Nashville was dead. And now it's not. Now it's whoop-de-doo. 26 was put in, 40 into 81 or 81 into 40, however you look at it. And that's the new corridor, right? Because it was the old corridor, places like, Jonesboro and Johnson City and Elizabethton, they were the the high-tech valley of America in the 1840s, because they had a ton of water here, right? And a ton of coal, and they could make steel, right? And they could make factories that had steam powered things punching shit out. And there were people who were pretty handy who could fill that job, right? And in that 60, from 1840 to 1950, that 100-year period, this was amazingly productive, beautiful community that was the backbone of winning World War II manufacturing. Because it was transportation, power. That's why TVA came in the 30s and put all the dams and put all the transmission lines to where they ran gigantic transmission lines where Oak Ridge, Tennessee was, right? And there was nothing down. There was no anything there, right? Just a little nothing. Why'd they do that? Why'd they, spend a couple, lots of millions, like almost $1 billion in our money to do that, to bring that kind of electricity to a place where nothing was, right? Yes, along that line, there were other cities that were manufacturing, Elizabethton, Johnson City, Greensboro, and a few this way and a few that way. And so, but, within 6 months of December, whatever, Hawaii. Um, they were building, the largest building in the world to be a tokamak to, parse out little bits of U U-35 from yellow cake. They had it already down. They knew what they were going to do, and they were just waiting for problem, action, solution. And that was in the beginning of this. No, the beginning of this was 1492. Right? And again, people don't want to listen. Cancel culture. Oh, I don't want to hear it. White people are the only thing. No, white people good. White people good. White people good. White people good. We're all African Americans on a gradating scale of how melanin deficient you are. That's all it is. Right? We're all human beings. Right? And until we can all be humans, and not only that, all our relations. Oh, look at that, 26 minutes and 26 seconds. I love it. And I just wanted to reach out to you and talk about that. Mother Earth, Father Sky, Holy Spirit. So all you got to do is take in that big breath, breathe it out. Mother Earth, Father Sky, Holy Spirit. And every day in every way, we take the piece of the earth and make it stronger by our conscious intent and our free will's service to love's co-creation. See it now. And as you do that, you get more and more perspective. You go from the next time you see Colonel Sanders, you've cleaned up the road for him, but not all the way, just enough to make it not as hard as it was. Because, I'm an old guy and I just had a bandsaw, I didn't have a chainsaw. So, and all the people who I used to help out, and they had a chainsaw, they had a tractor, or they had a this, or they had a that. They're all dead. Right? They're all dead. All the grandmas are dead. All the holler grandpas are dead. Your papos, right? All the, when someone's calling you papa, or they're just asking, oh, so you're going to die soon. So the folks who are like the tweaker mentality and, the class of Colonel Sanders, slave owners, but they themselves were slaves, Colonel Sanders was not a free man, that's for sure. It's just like, Reverend Lardass, he's not serving God. He's getting some little thing to fluff him up, That's why he became a minister, Didn't have to work, tax free, all those women at church. I'm on my knees to shine up the knob of Jesus. And, you can plug in any religion you want. I'm not going after anyone, even though I was a little, whatever you call that, patronizing in my theatrical motif. But no, this doesn't go out to any singular group. It goes out to the human race, right? Not white human race, not black human race, not red human race, or yellow human race, or Asian human race, or Aryan human race, or what are those guys called? The Karazian mob, who became the Anunnaki, who became the Zionists, who were that entity, parallel entity. And because whenever anything goes, I was trying to tell someone this, it was blaming other people, It's the other thing. When you blame other people, and whenever you say, what your problem is, you're pointing at yourself. But it's very interesting if you look at the history of Germany, in that, the Khazarian mob, was hanging out just like ISIS, Oh, look, someone's calling in. Who is it? Oh, hey there, Mr. Colorado. How you doing? Ah, yes, yes. Here's the rabbi himself.
Hey.
Yep. So what's shaking there in the West?
Oh, well, the roads are a little bit drier than yesterday. All the mud is like half frozen now.
Ooh, that's always fun.
So I was herding cows on this road in Utah yesterday.
Oh, do you have a cowboy hat on?
Well, I have my redneck oil field hat on.
What you took a can of WD and just poured it in there?
It's a place. Oh boy.
Yeah, baby.
So how's Jesus today?
God Jesus, God. Allah Akbar, man. Allah Akbar. It's the same thing, right? I'm wearing a turban now. How's it look?
Oh, man. I don't know. I'm gonna have to bring a stick with me because the women are gonna be all over you.
That happens,
I know.
You just have to pick the right place, the right time, right?
Some people.
If you're in that, concentration camp with women, not so much. Except for that, a few, because in those concentration camps, they keep a few good ones off to the side.
Yeah, just don't let them know that you have a pair of pliers.
Okay, I won't. Yes. I don't want to do dental work.
Yeah, and all sorts of other shit. They'll find for you.
Yeah. So, anyway, we were talking, today's subject is Mother, Father, Holy Spirit, right? And about perspective, about no matter, because your lifestyle, why do you think you were born? What was, why did they pop you out in the factory? And then they put the software in and said, okay, what's he going to do down there? What do you think was your from your experience? Like you've been around long enough, right?
Well, long enough to make excuses, yeah.
Yeah, that was a tasty one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm pulled over on the side of the road right now, eating a sandwich. So I just happened to see that you were there, and I thought of you, and I thought, hey, I'll call him. But some people. What's the thing about the metaphor about the inside of the oyster? It's like a grain of sand is kind of the irritation.
Yep. That's that irritation. That little bit of irritation. That's me. That little bit of irritation.
Well, so in that sense, we're both full or partial expressions of toxic masculinity.
Yes. But we're semi-aware of it.
Yeah, so I guess it's okay. And maybe it might even be a tax write-off. I don't know.
I know it's a tax write-off. I don't know if it's okay.
Well, here's another thing of today.
Yes. What's the other thing?
Well, it's always tranny men trying to go to women's bathrooms. You never see a lesbian in a man's bathroom.
No, you never see that. No, you don't see that.
And
you lived around the world, correct?
Well, it tells you, yes, but it tells you that they truly are. They have the male, what's the word, sexually inquisitive. They are capable of, they're truly, their orientation.
I think the word you're looking for is they're a dog.
Well, they're true. What they're trying to do is to disguise that they're actually male.
Right. Well, I mean, men don't. That's the real problem about gender in this on the planet at this time experienced by Homo sapiens. Other species, they actually have the same thing. Other species, everyone is on a gradating scale. No, it's not like right here at 3.899, that's man. No, that's male. That's no, because back in the day, and it's happening now, women used to be able to procreate themselves. They didn't need the guy.
When was that?
Oh, back in the day of Wonder Woman.
Yeah, I'm just going to go to a cocoon for 9 months, and I'm going to start to divide.
Yeah, right, exactly. Or whatever process that was. I have no idea. We were kept away from it, right? But men are definitely the weaker, stupider, more gullible, any of those others you want to slip in there, part of the species. He's only, it was a great, I forgot the lady who wrote it. It was called not Childhood's End, but it was where humans had evolved to a point where there was a female and there was a male, but there was a third one that gave, that just dated the baby. It was, basically called the easy. There's Bob, Mary, and Easy Bake Oven.
Man, you're trying to put me out of a job.
Yeah. So the man did the kind of manly, stupid shit. The woman did the sensitive, intelligent stuff. And the society got along great. Kind of like Sparta.
Okay.
Kind of
All
like
right.
Sparta. Sparta was like, women really ran the show. That's why that city was way on top of that hill. That had that very strange wall around it where you came in this one way and you went up a steep incline, right? And so when the conquering army went off to conquer something, and if they didn't come back as conquerors, the women would show them the back, and the archers would take them out as they were coming up the hill.
That's pretty brutal.
Yeah, and to be a because I think it was 3 or 4 years there was a cadre. So the men had 3 or 4, they would be in these cadres every 3 or 4 years. So whenever they needed somebody to go up conquering, they would send out whoever was the most adept cadre guys at doing that. And if they didn't come back with conquering, having booty and stuff and land on their belts, they knew that they were going to be, and those were the guys who kind of started being the low life guys who would kill and rape and pillage on the side of the highway. And that's kind of why Sparta kind of lost its edge, because once they got to a certain size, it wasn't good for the business plan, and they didn't know anything else to do. So that's why the girls kind of went away.
Yeah. Then she married the son-in-law who was a lawyer, studying to be a lawyer.
Right, something like that. Yeah, and had real political expectations.
Oh yeah. Got to have that ambition, man.
Like,
and a nice hair.
Nice hair. That's, forget ambition. Nice hair. Because you look at people like Teddy Kennedy and Tim Kaine and other nice hair guys, and everyone says, "Oh, they're such a great blah blah blah." And no, they're like morons.
Yeah, Gavin Newsom.
Yeah, there's one. That's yep.
Yeah. Hey, anyway, speaking of all that, you were saying about males being gullible and stuff.
Right.
I think you're missing out on an opportunity. You need to repackage, or maybe just have a few alterations or adjustments.
I'm always up for alterations. I love alterations.
You need to, if you're going to start a cult, you need to.
Well, I don't want to start a cult with dumb males, because there's so many examples of where that doesn't work, and the best one is Jim Jones.
Yeah.
That's a good one. I mean, that poor guy, he got played like nobody. And you know what's really interesting? Nancy Pelosi and Feinstein and the other one, the three girls that came from San Francisco, they were as deep, neck deep in that.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, that's how they got to Washington, by making sure that what went down there was, looked at in a different way.
Yeah, and in addition to that, Feinstein's personal driver, the limousine driver, Chinese spy for 20-something years.
Yeah. And they knew it, just like Mitch McConnell, his wife, her father owns the biggest shipping corporation in China, which is basically owned by the CCP army.
You're not trying to shock me, are you?
No, that's true. I mean, that's, you can go look that one up. And then,
hey, man.
then she's in Carrot Head's, cabinet.
Yeah. Hey, man. I'm sorry, but I gotta run.
I only have one. I have one last important question to ask you.
Okay, I'll try to answer it.
What kind of sandwich did you have?
It's turkey, and I think my wife put in some like she sliced the cheese. The cheese was better today. It was like a slice of thick mozzarella. No wait. What the heck? Maybe it was cheddar. I don't know.
Yummy. Yummy is the best adjective for food. Yummy.
Yeah. Chevy Chase, Maryland.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, handsome. I'll let you go back to being the superhero you are. And thanks for calling in. And that's my invitation to anybody else. And just before you hang up, just hold on a second. Here it is, 42 minutes and 42 seconds. You can go with my blessing.
All right.
But you remember the beginning of the title is Rabbi Double Doctor Sensei Bob.
Sensei.
Da, 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 da. Okay, thanks, Bob. Who's our next contestant? Satan. Oh, look, it's Satan.
Satan's like the band leader. Hey, man.
Yeah.
He'd be like that. What's his name? Hey, anyway, no, think about it, man. We can have it. Man, I can just invite interesting guests.
We could do it. We could do it upright. I'm telling you. Go investigate what it would take for you to, be adroit at, doing a podcast, and we'll do one.
Okay.
I mean, if Joe Rogan can get $200 million a year, we can get at least, something.
Oh yeah. Oh man, it's low hanging fruit. Just pull it a little bit.
Yeah, just pull it. Yep. Okay, handsome. Drive safe.
Okay, thank you.
Bye. Well, that was a good call in. Let's see. It's $1.12. Let's see what her name is doing.
Wow.
Well,
I mean, that question has been asked of me many times now.
what's the question?
What needs to happen? And
What needs to happen?
I don't. If you're talking about security or how to secure, our homes and our, so that we're not vulnerable.
Huh.
I don't have the answer to that. I mean, I'm a local official. People, I've lived here. I was born.
Okay, enough of that. If you're depending on anybody else, I mean, and if you're depending on a gun to give you security, security comes from your heart and your soul and your spirit and your mind and your consciousness, right? And that's kind of what the whole show has been about. It's about, what's it gonna take? Just like the unheard question. Let's see, who else can we call? Oh, let's try Sweetie. Chad, the amazing girl. Let's see if she answers.
Hello?
Oh, there she is.
Hi, there I am.
You're part of the show today.
Oh, wonderful.
And we're talking about anything you want to talk about. What's the thing? What's the thing that's really floating your boat?
Desire.
Okay.
Why do we desire different things, and why is it rooted into us?
Is it a natural phenomena, or have we been programmed?
Yeah, is it natural or is it influenced?
Right. Nature or
Okay.
nurture.
Yeah.
Well, the guys who pull all the strings, they're pretty on top of what motivates the human squirrel,
Yeah.
and so they can use it. That problem, action, solution. That whole thing about building a big scary monster, so your population will do what you want them to do.
Mhm.
And so that's where we are, and it's just one of the little threads of where we are, and so I've been around. See, I could be, if you were viewing my predicament, you would say, oh, poor Sensei Bob, he's stuck there in the deep green. Oh, isn't that too bad? Well, not really. It's a beautiful place. It's nice. I've enjoyed it for the last 20 years. It's just the tweakers and Colonel Sanders motif. So just think of people who think they're rich.
Yeah.
They're driving in their new $120,000 car that no one knows how to fix, right? And,
Mhm.
and those are people I call Colonel Sanders because they're not really rich. They are three neglected payments on their credit card to being out on the street.
Yeah.
Guys like you and me, we're rich. We have nothing. We have nothing, so we can't lose anything.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a very topsy turvy world.
It always has been. You show me one point of time when it wasn't.
I don't know. I don't remember.
So, is this a question that you put your characters in the middle of?
Um. Oh heck yeah! I mean, I write mainly romance, so it's just like, should I do this? Why do I love them? Why do I do this? It's just all kind of about the heart and the gut.
So, do you push out into the more existential point rather than the heart and gut?
Always, always.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, that's always the core at it. It kind of, all my stories begin there, and then the person's rocked, and then they kind of have to technically find their way back to that. Almost not spirit. I wouldn't say spiritual, even though it is spiritual.
No, it's a
just
spirit.
because
I think it's when you put the Yule on spirit, you're cross. You got one leg in religion and the other one in theology, right?
Yeah, and it's an ideal, and I don't want to be the author who's just like pushing my what I think people should think or
Right.
how they should view it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, and there's just a lot of nature, and so I think it's kind of like finding out their own nature while connecting to nature.
So you have you're on the West Coast. Are you experiencing any of that crap that California's experiencing?
What are they experiencing? It's beautiful here.
Oh, okay, and you're not in California. Then you're not experiencing. California's experiencing. You know, what do they call it? Sky rivers.
Oh, so like flooding?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah, I heard they were getting flooding, but I didn't realize it was still going on.
Oh yeah, it's going on in like biblical. I mean, when you call something a sky river,
Yeah.
that isn't like it's not like a thunderstorm or a gully wash. That's like it's almost on the same level of their droughts. But their
Wow.
droughts have been going on for 15 years, and this is just the beginning. So it looks like There is a great movie and a book written by two guys I like a lot. One named Art Bell. Do you know who Art Bell is? Did you ever hear that name?
Yes,
Right?
I've heard of them.
He had a radio. He was the first guy to really start. I mean, he started podcasts. He started all of talk radio. He started all of that in his flavor in the 1940s, right?
Okay.
And there were other guys doing it, guys like William B. William and, you know, oh, there were a number of radio guys in the Northeast who were they told stories. They were more like me than talk radio. You know, they weren't really pushing an ideology. Art Bell, and he would always talk about really, you know, flying saucers and everything that went bump in the night and conspiracy theories and all of that. And he started doing that in the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, O's. He died, I think, maybe 2016, maybe 2015, somewhere. And he basically was either murdered or he just said, fuck it, I'm out of here.
Yeah.
So, that storyline has always been there. And it's very, the average person is very intrigued by it. You know, one of the biggest things that America, you know, when they ask questions in you know surveys, you know, they say, "So, what do you think about UFOs?" And that gets more response than anything else.
Yeah. People love the unknown.
Is it the unknown?
Well, it is because it's not like clarified, I'd say. People like to speculate a lot about it for the most part.
Okay. Okay, I can see that.
I mean, I'm talking from my point of view, so because I don't have that many experiences.
Right.
So.
Right. Exactly. And because I basically, you know, I'm such a cheeky monkey. I love, you know, one of the things I do is push people's buttons in a benevolent and sweet kind of way. You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, I say things that people, you know, steam is coming out of their ears, you know. So it's a nice day where you are right now. That's good.
Yes, it's beautiful.
What's the temp?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'd say maybe in the 70s almost.
Yeah, right. So did you get any winter yet?
I mean, we did during the winter time for sure. So
it is the winter time. Right now it's the winter time.
Well, I feel like it's over, and I did hear that we're gonna get an early spring, and I'm very excited about that.
Sounds good to me. So, are you writing anything new, or are you still in the editorial mode?
I'm always adding little things. I guess I'm more in the editorial mode right now because I haven't had the opportunity to just sit down and put my energy into my writing.
Right. Okay. So, how did your date? If you don't mind me asking something personal on the World Wide Web,
might as well.
Yeah. Well, how did your date go?
It went marvelous.
Marvelous. Oh, good. How did he answer that question that I said he had to answer to be the right guy?
What question was that?
Oh, when you said that your conversations telephonically were always about things like, so what's your proof? You know, when he could suspend his disbelief. Could he suspend his disbelief?
He did, and when we were together, we didn't even talk about anything like that. We were just talking about each other and just really locked into each other. So, yeah.
So is he in your neighborhood, or do you have to travel?
We have to travel like an hour and a half.
That's not too far.
It's not. It's bearable.
Right. But it's good. It's nice. It's like when I took care of my parents for 28 years, I always made sure I was 30 miles away from them. Close enough than anybody else, but not like they could, oh, you need to come over here and tie my shoelace.
Yeah.
So that was, So that's good. So that's good.
Yeah.
You need that kind of juice to and spring is coming, so go up and have some real fun and
Exactly. I'm feeling very grateful, and that's what I'm just focused. My problem is I do like his bluntness because he's not mean. He's just very blunt,
Right.
and I love that. I don't like it when people are mean, but I love it. Like I hate when people sugarcoat things
Or dance around and don't
yes,
really. Yes.
and he's not like that, and but at the same time, he told me, he was like, "You have daddy issues."
What?
He said you have daddy issues. And I was,
Well, you
and I
name me one. I was talking to Dr. Colorado, and we were discussing men, and that
Yeah.
men are basically worthless pieces of crap. They're just, a more animated version of a, vibrator.
But they love to protect, and they are good lovers, some of them.
Well, some of them, and they're not too good at protecting because if their first thing is to go be violent or be like, "Arr!" that is not a good form of, protection is getting people out of harm's way,
Yeah.
right? And seeing it before anybody shows up. Meaning,
Mm-hmm.
if I could tell you, which I was telling lots of people, that this thing in Ukraine and Russia was going to happen, everybody said, "Oh no! Why? Look, we surrounded Russia, Poland. I said, well, he's coming. Russia's going to assert itself, and it's going to be played like it always is. It always gets the bum end of the deal,
Mm-hmm.
and so, but it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of people's lives. But when you compare the Ukrainian war, which has probably cost 300,000 lives to today, I mean, don't quote me on that one, but in my observation, that's kind of, what I think it is. And but you look at Ethiopia and Eritrea, and that neck of the woods of Africa, they've lost 2 million in the same amount of time. And we don't really, and we go, oh yeah, that's too bad over there. But we don't really
I know we don't.
show the
Most
picture.
people don't care.
Right, exactly. And when Syria, which we caused to collapse, and about 12 million Syrians went to Europe. Boy, that big brouhaha. But 7 million Ukrainians, not a problem, because they're white, and the only guys who were semi-smart about it were the Germans, because they're always semi-smart about things. And they basically realized they needed more workers in the factory, and that Syria was a very well-educated and motivated and experienced people. So the people who were coming from Syria into Germany, they weren't looking for a handout. They just needed a place to stay, learn German, show me the factory,
Yeah.
And they have been totally, and that's why Germany took a gigantic spike up before this war, was because they had the means of production and they had real cheap chain of resources, right? And so this is all just being reset. Again, this is a male stupid attitude, because all it's going to do politically, economically, socially, historically, is to use shit up instead of planting the seed to grow something better.
Yeah.
And that's more a feminine thing. And as I was talking to Dr. Colorado, the things that men do, that men and women, do you know the book, the sci-fi book that was written maybe 60s or 70s? And the premise was us in the near, in the distant future. And instead of just being guys and girls, there was the feminine, there was the masculine, and then there was the easy bake oven.
There's a few books like that, yeah.
Where, instead of two people having sex, it was three, right?
I mean, one of my favorite books ever is The Giver.
Uh-huh.
And that really talks about that, how people don't have babies anymore, and they take pain out of them, and they can't see color, and they've all been kind of, molded.
So, but this has more to do with gender, meaning there's the feminine side and the masculine side, but the thing that would cause the gender disruption is turned into the easy bake oven. And thus, one of the main pillars of moving human consciousness forward is taken away. And so everyone is just a Gumby wanting to, sit in their easy boy recliner and watch the tube.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm, that's not really what that author, and it was a female too. It wasn't, I wish it wasn't Childhood's End. It was another thing. Did you ever read Childhood's End?
No.
It's about right now, right? It was written maybe in the 50s or 60s, but it's about right now where our technology, everything is right where are all these kind of conflicts, right where the person really pegged it, right? I mean, like today, right?
Yeah.
And just before we blow ourselves up, the ships pull over all the major capital cities and say, and turn off the lights, just hit a switch and nothing works, right? And everyone freaks out, and then they turn it back on and said, okay, we're here to help. You guys are your own worst enemies. We've been watching, just like the day the earth stood still, right? I think this person got it from that. And anyway, so they said, okay, we're going to take over everything, but you're going to be right at our side. We're going to show you all this great technology, how it really works, how it's meant to not kill people, but make your society better and better, right? And that's going to last 60 years, right? And after that, we will come out, and it's just like the Wizard of Oz. They're behind a curtain. No one gets to see them. There is one guy that they just pick out of, the story starts with this guy. He's just a farmer somewhere, and they pick him up, and he has his experience with the aliens, his close encounter. And then they land on the front lawn of the UN and say, okay, and they got, Farmer Boy with them. And they said, okay, we picked him out of the umpteen billion people here to be our representative. He's honest, hardworking, really good guy. He's one of you. We didn't make him, he'll tell you who he is. You can go look at his little town and everyone will talk about him, right? So we picked him out because he's not the sharpest guy, but he's not no dummy. He is, not a, he's going to try and do the best by the human race. You look at everybody, here's the guy, right? So they do. And so the story, the meat of the thing is that 60 years, and he goes and visits them in a white room. That's very nicely appointed, but that's kind of how one of their things, they only, they don't have colors like we do. So they have a very nice lounge that they like picked out of Sears, but everything is white, right? So he goes and stays a day or two and gets, upped, they kind of stick stuff in his head so he can explain it to the rest of the folk. And after 6 years, there's no war, no famine. Everyone lives to roughly 100 years. There's just the right amount of babies being born to keep the population healthy, all of that, right? So the day that comes, and about 20 years before this, he dies because he is exposed to these guys. And even though they're really smart, they didn't quite, at least they say this, didn't quite realize that being around them, kind of wore your body out. And so they said, from now, we're going to have this magic shield. You're going to be able to see us. So the head guy is going to walk out on stage, right? And the end of the book, this guy walks out, and he is this straight up image of Satan, with, the hooves, the horns, it looks like the billy goat with a kangaroo and a few other things thrown in, and whatever Satan is in that picture. And he walks out and he says, so this is your God here. I mean, I'm not really God, but I'm the dude who is helping you to move forward. And they all freak out. And that's really the whole thing, is that our little experience here right now is our childhood. When it ends is when we realize that this was just a sandbox and we have to learn certain things like getting along.
Yes.
So that's Childhood's End. And that's a good one. But, and they pick the thing that would freak most humans out, that this person who's been helping them out for 60 years is definitely Beelzebub,
Ah, okay.
right? So that's and it kicks them out of the motif of always wanting to have mommy and daddy take care of it, right? They
Yeah, and I am coming to find that like a lot of what life, like one of the, I guess you could say, secrets to life is figuring it out on your own.
right, and that's kind of what this
Deciding
show
the
is
rules.
about today. Is that
Yeah.
instead of responding to your hormones, meaning fight or flight or oversexed, that you take a big breath in and you step back and you get that perspective so you can see what it is.
Mhm.
And I've been having to deal with that with the tweakers that are moving. I've had this beautiful spot, my nature preserve, for 18 years. And I knew one day this would happen with the rich people, because this is the last little crumb of everything they swept up.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just watching them do it. So instead of getting really upset, I just have to keep standing back and breathing and looking at really what's going on and going, okay. And instead of stepping into shit, I just, so everything that's annoying, and these folks, if you're generous, they just take more, right?
Yeah.
And so the bottom line is to be conscious about what you're doing and not stop being generous. I'm not going to stop being me, but I don't have to, do things that aren't good for me, right? So I can be conscious, right? So and when they do really stupid shit that most people would get real, like stuff like this one guy I call Colonel Sanders. He's basically found that no one else but me was here, found that I was semi, nice, and then he just absorbed 4 or 5 other people's property into his. Right?
Oh my God.
Now, I similarly did the same thing because, I had a guy survey the property and he said, this is what it is. And he didn't do such a great job, but he did it on the other side of, and I could have been more conscious about it. Well, anyway, I basically stuck a few things there, but they're temporary. I mean, you can roll them away, right? You don't have to, right? So, but no one's, in the last 18 years, no one has said anything about them. And, as a way, I don't think it could work, but whenever you do things like that, there is, if no one complains for long enough, then it's yours, right? But that's like generations. And there are other things you got to do. And I never really, basically, I knew that this day would come, and one day somebody would want my property and I'd sell it to them. I'd go someplace else, right? 'Cause
Yeah.
pretty much that has been my motif. I've done it 8 different times, meaning I stepped into 8 different places that were like, oh, nobody wanted to be there. Lower East Side, Soho, Tribeca, Waynesburg, Brooklyn, places in Australia, places in when I was in Gutenberg, right? Did you ever go to Gutenberg when you were an EU girl?
No, unfortunately.
Oh, that and Berlin are the places to go in Western Europe.
Yeah, I'd love to go in that area.
I mean, if you like London, like I know you like London, man, you would have loved both of those places. Especially around the time you were there, both of those guys had, totally yupped out. I mean, when I was there in the 70s, everyone was living in abandoned buildings. And the economics was so bad that the utilities would let you live in an abandoned building and turn on the gas and electric and water.
Oh, damn.
Because they knew if they didn't, and you would get a little money out of them, or they get a little money out of you, you would just steal it. Wasn't hard to steal.
Yeah, London is a lot like that.
Right. Yeah, very laissez-faire. Right. So anyway,
but they wouldn't do that if they were so freaking forced to be poor by the government.
Right. And I mean, boy, I lived in England, and the first time I guess I went was 66. I lived there, in 69, I guess. And they're in Paddington Station. That was one of my favorite places to live, Paddington Station.
Yeah.
And what's the big park in the middle of London?
Hyde Park.
Yeah, Hyde Park. And then the City of London, where is that in relation to Hyde Park?
Hyde Park, I'd say, is right there. Like
When I say the City of London, you know what I'm talking about. The banking place that is
yeah.
like
I
the
mean, it's literally
Vatican.
like
It's a
5.
different. It's a different meaning. The king can go into anybody's house in that neck of the woods and kill them or rape them. You know
I mean,
that stuff is still on the books. You know, and
I mean, I'd say they're rubbing shoulders. It's so close.
right. You know what the word "fuck" means? It's a legal term. It's a legal term.
No, I do not.
And it was invented for the City of London
That
and
makes sense.
the City of Vatican. It stands for fornication under church and king.
Oh. Where'd you find that out?
Well, 50 years of being a itinerant scholar, you're going to learn something. So, a number of people told me that one, but who was the first? Oh, Billy Kluver, I think. Because he met my grandma. I was probably, I don't know, 16 years old. And CFR, Council for Foreign Relations, are they're the guys who run the world, or one of the entities.
Yeah.
They're like a poster child, meaning you know who they are, right? It's like who was that guy? When you are a scholar, Cecil Rhodes in England. He started a similar thing in England, and he then and then his boys and girls came from that entity to America and started the CFR. So it's like this kind of cousinly relationship of people who run the world that are bureaucrats. They're mechanics. They aren't the people in power. They kind of tell you they are, but they're not. They're just a poster. Like the politicians. They're just they're the best money can buy. That's it. So, and it's always been that way. And yet we are at one of these diversion points where that can change. But we've been here before. This ain't the first time.
Oh, for sure.
So what do you think is needed? So here you and I, we have a great we've been given a great gift. So we have a great, with power comes responsibility. I don't know quite if you'd put us in the power position, but we definitely have. We've been given a gift to be able to reach out and do something past ourselves.
Yeah.
Or the system that is stuck here, right?
Yeah.
So that brings up the question: how do we get unstuck?
By listening and listening to the voice of, I guess you could say,
God,
or God or spirit in everything and everyone, and trusting and going with the flow, but at the same time following your instincts and
being
just
conscious intent. Right. So I had a lot of that today, and that one of the little I'm gonna go on the bop again, right? Because it seems like, why stay here and just look at these morons do this crazy shit they're doing. I mean, whether I'm here or not, they're still going to do it. Whether I'm here or not, it's really not going to mean anything, because I'm just I've been here the longest, right? So I'm kind of grandfathered in, literally. And the other guys, the newbies, they're coming in like this summer. They're going to be a ton of, I would say, at least 5 people building houses right here, and that's when they're going to just understand that this guy has taken up a big chunk of their property, right?
Mhm.
Just because he says it's his, anyway. So I don't have to worry about it. So I'm going to go on the bop, and I'm just going to go to wherever I go. If I actually get over in your neck of the woods, I'm going to be at your front door. But you're way over there. My
Yeah.
abilities aren't, unless I stumble into something interesting, and that's kind of what I'm going to do. So when I decided this a couple of days ago, um, I thought about all this and all that, and I thought, and then certain anxieties grew up, and then I just kind of heard that voice say, no, 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 this is how it works, kid. Every time you're thinking about something, instead of reaching for the magic 8 ball, breathe in deep and listen to me.
Mhm.
And so the last few days, that's what I've been doing. And then when you do that, the magic 8 ball really works. I mean, really works. It's like it's like really, it gives you a nice visual backup. But in reality, all you need is that big breath, and you don't hear a voice or anything. It's just your mind opens up and you see the different parameters, and you make the right decision for that moment anyway.
Mhm.
So that's where I'm heading in the next few days. It's in that direction, and so I have no idea what it's going to be, but I know enough people I can just show up for at least there are enough people that would stick me on their couch for 4 or 5 days and happy to see me. After that, I'd start to smell and they'd want me out of there. So it's like fish, not our friend fish, but the fish market fish.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Anyway, so have you heard anything? So you haven't touched anything I sent you, right? You haven't even looked at it.
No, I have not. Not recently. Actually, I did a little read when you first sent them to me, but
Right.
I didn't get to read the whole thing.
Now, what did I just send you? Because I'm still, editing. I've written 15 novels, but these 5, did I send you all 5 or just?
Yeah, you did send me. I think you sent me all of them.
Right. Okay. So, and that was probably a good month or 2 or 3 ago, right?
Yeah.
So I've like rewritten them all, and I put them in different places. The one that was at the end, death, I made that number 1, right?
Mhm.
Ear hair was number 2. Nope, nope, nope. I switched legacy because it described the way I was going to deconstruct everything. I was going to, so I thought, okay. Instead of putting this at the end, I should put this at the second one so people get the 411 of what I'm looking to try and show them. So I put that
Mhm.
and kind of rewrote it, but kept all the characters and storylines the same. I just tweaked it here and there. So that's kind of I'm in that process of like moving that all around. And once I get it to a place where okay, I may edit it even more, but this is the next rendition, I'll probably send that to you, or at least 1 and 2. I may not send all 5, but now I know how to do it. It's so easy. So
Yeah.
so anyway, your what? So you took a little taste test. Can you remember what you thought or what you felt about whatever I was doing?
Well, it's just like the same storyline, like with the like the person changes characters, right?
Right.
But
Right.
it's the same person.
Yep. And not just I mean everything, how they look at stuff. I mean, because basically we're all one entity,
Mhm.
right? We're one splat, and all the different characters are just the different. I mean, the one thing I liked, and there were many things I liked about the Matrix, but the third one, where our hero is like blind and he's overcome everything and he's become the super duper whoop de doo master of it all, and he meets the architect, the old guy in a really nice suit,
Mhm.
right? And so our boy can't really see, but he can see the code. He can't see like our eyes see, but he's seeing everything and more. And the guy goes, "Well, you think this is the first time you've been here?" And the camera turns around and there's a zillion, um, little TVs of Neo, right?
Yeah.
And it's the Neo being a transsexual, a neo being this, a neo being that, and a happy neo, a sad neo, a angry neo, and
Mhm.
and that's kind of so my that's that, right? But I don't go there, and it's also, I mean, I got that idea from the Akashic record.
Yeah.
You know, when I show it, there's a big screen and the 28 little screens around,
Yeah.
giving you all the different dimensional points of it. Do you still do that? Do you go into state and look at that?
I try to go into state now every day. I don't look at my Akashic records every day,
Right.
but I do that more regularly now.
Right, good, good, good. So as long as you're going in state, and again, that's practice makes perfect. Meaning, once you can just, instead of having to go through the whole rigmarole, um, if you just can, you know, close your eyes and take that big breath, and bang, you're there.
Yeah.
And then you can do whatever you want in state, and then come back. And yeah, you might have been doing something for the last month and a half in state, but it's just a nanosecond later after you. If you can get to that place, then you're that's and you can have the luxury of investigating this, that, and the other thing.
I've been trying to get into I don't know, is it the spirit realm, the DMT realm, the same thing as the spirit realm?
No.
Like with the elves and
No, no. The spirit is more an energetic, more like it's like
oh,
electricity.
vibration?
It's like electricity, right? It's like the
Okay. Is it a
power.
frequency?
And well, and again, you use the simile of electricity. Electricity is electricity. You know, they haven't
Yeah.
figured out whether it's a wave, meaning frequency, or a particle, right? So they haven't figured
Okay.
that out. But it's basically, like Hydra said, it's both, right? Because it acts like both, so it is both.
Yeah.
And even though
Yeah.
you're stuck in your little mud puppet consciousness and you can't
Yeah.
visualize that, but so no, spirit is like I said, it's like the electricity that is, and that's why I use the term prana, because
Mhm.
the oh the Hindu motif is Hindu, and the other guys, they are great. You know, all of these are great theologies, right?
Mhm.
When you plug human beings into them and turn them into a business plan religion, ooh, it never works out.
Mhm.
So anyway, yeah, so where the elves live, that's just a different address. That's like, instead of living in Boise, you're living in Patterson, New Jersey. You know, the elves
Mhm.
live in Patterson, New Jersey.
Mhm.
They're just like us. You know, it's like, white people, black people. We're all the same. You know, midgets. Um, whatever you want. Giants. They're all of that, right? They're
Mhm.
all. There was a place in New York where it was a medical school and that had a like museum of human or physiological oddities, and they had a person who suffered gigantism, and he died, I think, in the 18 somethings, latter
Okay.
part of the 19th century, and he was three uh, 2.3 meters tall. So how
Mhm.
tall is that in feet, would you say, just roughly? 8
What, like 8 feet?
8 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was 8 feet, and they had him, his bones, his skeleton, on, um, you pay your 25 cent and you go take a look at it all this stuff, and he was one of them. And just the other day, they put him in the back storeroom, right? And
Mm.
and they said it was because they wanted to be sensitive to that group of people. Well, there aren't too many, 8-foot people walking around.
Mhm.
And he was really big, not like the 7'2" basketball guys, right?
Yeah.
They're just really tall humans, right?
Mhm.
This guy is a giant, you know. So I just think they took him out of exhibition because they didn't want people to see that and to think about other things.
Yeah.
And there's this big whoop-de-doo about um, Carrot Head and JoJo the used car salesman taking um, top secret things home, right?
Mhm.
Virtually every president has done that, right?
Yeah, I've heard.
And the other thing is we classify over 1 million things every day. So
Yeah.
it's hard not to take anything home with you because what we had for lunch, that's classified. Um, the classification process is being used not to keep our enemies. Our enemies, we give them the information, right? They give their secrets to us, we give ours to them. The
Yeah.
secrets they're keeping are from their people. Because
Mhm.
once we get access to going down that hill, they'll see that, my God, look, there was free energy in 1792.
Mhm.
We could have had, everything we have today in 1792 and more.
Yeah.
And all that money that we've been taxed. Half of our militaries, not just in outer space, but on other, solar systems. We're already in, and that was, the guy who did Star Trek. What's his name? Um, he was in the Navy, and he was in all. Is what's really interesting. People who write really interesting things have been in intelligence at one time,
Hmm.
right? And so he just wanted to give the heads up to the general public that the federation already exists. We're already part of it. We already have people out there doing what Jim Kirk is doing,
Mhm.
and so how do you think the average American or human on Earth would take to that kind of understanding? We have been
Oh
kept,
gosh, they would melt.
yes, but
They
they'd get
would
pretty
melt.
upset. They would like say, "What? We didn't have
They
to have
would
these
have
wars. My
panic
son didn't have to
attacks.
die. I didn't have to lose an eye and a leg. What?"
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would cause absolute chaos.
Chaos. Yes, exactly. Yeah. I'll talk about absolute chaos. So Harry's put out his little book and his little TV show. Have you looked at any of that?
I watched the TV show. I haven't read anything about the book, but I know the book is pretty out there.
Right. Yeah, he talks about killing people when he was a soldier, doing mushrooms, beating his brother up, hating his father, all the usual
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
So you don't care about any. What? So you watch the TV show? What'd you think of that? I don't. I just hear comments about shit. I don't really.
Well, I do really like Meghan Markle, and I really a lot of people in England are truly disgustingly racist about her. I experienced it firsthand.
Well, so I mean, pretty much anything that's in the guise of the European Christian culture mode. I mean, United States is right. The only reason we're not as bad as England is that we've been bringing foreigners into our country since the beginning.
Yep.
So and we keep doing it because that's part of our, like, we've done this twice with Mexicans, and we did it
Mhm.
twice with Italians and Germans too, where we let them in because we needed them to do certain jobs, and then they were succeeding, so we said, oh, they're terrible people, we're gonna never let any more of them in, and we didn't for 20, 30 years, and then we needed their skill set again, and we brought them in until they became Velveeta cheese, right?
Hmm.
They're still, so it's kind of hard to turn Mexicans into Velveeta cheese.
Hell yeah.
What is the cheese that you buy at the supermarket in the Mexican section?
Uh, Mexican cheese, goat cheese.
Yeah, that white stuff,
Yeah.
which I like
Yeah.
better. I like much better. So anyway, so yes, England is super, and that's why there are a couple of TV shows. I don't know if you've seen them that are talking about England, like gang warfare of the 60s, 70s, 80s. When the gangsters were, and when the street thugs, kids out there now wear their pants around their butt and have their Glock in their pants, and And then there were these guys in England back in the 60s, 70s, 80s who kind of wore those suits. There's the mods and the rockers, right?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
So the mods were the guys in the suits, and the rockers were the guys who wore leather jackets and rode mopeds. They didn't have motorcycles, they had mopeds.
Mhm.
So that's England. It's like stuck in that. Like I said, when in the latter 90s, I mean latter 60s, downtown London, I mean there were still buildings that were like roped off because it had been blown up by the Germans during World War II. Meaning 25, 30 years later, they still hadn't cleared out a good chunk of downtown London
Mm.
because they wanted the people to stay in that mode of poverty and having coupons you had to clip to get butter and shit like that. So,
Mhm.
but that's
Yeah, I couldn't believe how cut off people living there are. It's
when you
I-
say cut off, what do you mean?
it's just it's literally like they're thrown into like a poverty pit, and they're not given any ladders. The only way to get out is if you have to do. It's almost like a caste system. It's not as bad as India, I will definitely say. Like,
But it is. It's still the same, but it's not
yeah,
as
but
bad.
there's a lot more privileges.
Right.
And you get free healthcare, and there's still like a lot of loopholes you have to go through, but at least it's not third world caste system.
Yeah, but it's at the bottom of the heap of the industrial Europe. Meaning, you compare Sweden to England, and it is the third world,
Mhm.
right? I mean, you. So, how much time did you spend in Sweden? Because you're a Swede girl.
Well, yeah, I spent a lot of time in I would go for a month every few years from the age of 8 and and then when I was 19 was the last time I went.
And what part of Sweden? Big city?
Very, very south. Cities, but south. Close to Denmark.
Okay. What city?
Malmo.
Okay. Right. So, how would you describe that city?
Beautiful. I love Sweden. I remember the first time going there, and I remember just being amazed by how clean everything is. And then
How
there's
everything
flowers.
works.
Yeah, I love it. Like a lot of people, they roll their eyes about, oh yeah, but they pay so much taxes.
Well, they don't. I
Yeah,
mean,
but
they pay taxes on shit. Meaning, if you don't drink, if you don't smoke cigarettes, if you don't do a lot of things like that, your taxes really aren't that high.
yeah,
Right? I mean, they don't. They have a VAT. They don't have a. They take some money out of your paycheck, but not really a lot.
mhm,
I mean, probably Americans, if people understood how our economy worked, they would realize they are getting severely ripped off.
oh heck yeah.
So,
And a lot of things about Sweden is that they really do listen and they really do try.
in their own
So
sick kind of way,
yeah,
when people go about Sweden, and really, unless you've been to Sweden and stayed there a while, meaning not just go there for a weekend, but
mhm,
so every time you went, you'd spend the summer, right? You'd be
yep,
right. So you'd be there a month at least, if not 2 or 3, right?
yep,
So the dynamic of Sweden is, at least in my take on it, is the fact that half their year it's dark and the other half the sun never sets. I think that makes them a little squirrely.
oh yeah,
But if you ever really want to describe Sweden or have someone go, oh, that's what it's like, I think the movie The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, is that the movie I'm talking about?
yeah,
Is that what it's called, or does it have another name?
yep. Girl with the dragon tattoo.
Right, right. I think that describes Sweden better than virtually anything.
I mean, in my experience, yes, but at the same time, it's so spiritual. There's a lot of people who are very spiritual and in a good way, not in a egotistical way. And so there is like a lot of duality in Sweden, I will say.
Right. And that movie, I think, caught it because that
Oh yeah.
family where the guy was a real sick, Dharma kind of guy, grabbing people and eating them or whatever he was doing down in the
Mhm.
basement to him. Um, his family had a lot of really interesting people. The pro domo, the guy who made the money at the beginning, um, he was still kind of alive, and we got to see him and what he thought of things. And then the people who support, kept him alive. And there were lots of rings of different types of personalities
Mhm.
that really gave a good show of, and the girl, right? The girl with the
Mhm.
tattoo, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I met a lot of, and not just girls like her, but mostly girls, but
Oh yeah.
there were guys like her too,
She's a fabulous representative of
right?
a lot of the people.
And she represented, to the 10th power, the competency of the Swede.
Mhm.
I mean, she was thrown into a zillion different things, and no problem. I'll take it. Computers,
Oh
no
my
problem.
goodness.
Guns, killing people, no problem. Riding her
Yep.
motorcycle, no problem. Anything
Yep.
dealing with this asshole bureaucrat, no problem.
Yep. Yep. That's where I get a lot of that no problem from.
Right, right. So it was, and I loved when I was there in my heyday. I was, you know, coming in. When Freddie Laker, that was the most amazing thing. You could fly from Kennedy to Heathrow for $60 between
Mhm.
1960 something, 8 9 to like 1980 something, right in there.
Very cool.
And so, man, I had a passport. I'd done that trip a zillion times, and it was so sweet. So you've been to New York, right?
Mhm.
And so right in the middle, there's Pan Am building, and Park Avenue goes right through it, and the Penn Central Railroad, which was like the cathedral of industry, was
Mhm.
there, and then they built the Pan Am building on top of it when Pan Am was the big airlines, right? And
Mhm.
now it's who knows what name is on it now, but down in where Park Avenue has to like elevate so it can kind of go through and around the Pan Am building and the railroad station, right? So
Mhm.
when they did that, they did that. So everything on 34th Street and the two avenues around it in the back, that's where all of the airlines had their offices in New York, right?
Mhm.
So Freddie Laker had one 747, or maybe two, maybe three, but not more than that, right? And he had an airplane that would leave Heathrow at a certain time every day, and an airplane that would leave New York same time, right, every day. So you
Mhm.
went down, and they had a little office down there, and you bought your ticket, and you bought it. They'd open around 8, and you went down there, and I think you could use a credit card, but they liked cash, and they did not, they could not afford a gate at Kennedy at the International Building, but what they could do is there was a place the airplane could sit for 12 hours, and if so it would unload people, and they would come down the staircase that would go to the tarmac. There'd be a bus there, and they'd take them into New York, right? So your ticket
Mhm.
got you a you would show up at that office on 34th Street, and they'd have a line of buses waiting, and it was like not the real 34th Street, but the one that was under the causeway. So it was the traffic people didn't mind 6 buses waiting for people. Anyway, you went there. You that's instead of getting a gate stamped, you went to back to the thing. They'd stamp your ticket, and you would wait in this little waiting room where they had like finger sandwiches and champagne. And then
Mhm.
when it was time, you would load up on the bus, and they'd take you to the airplane, and you would go up that step, and you get on the airplane, and they would give you a drink and some more finger food, and
Mhm.
the other buses would show up and the airplane would zip, and that was
Mhm.
Freddie Laker. That's how it worked, right? So he cut the cost because he didn't have to pay for anything like a gate or a big institutional thing in the country, blah blah blah. The airplane, as long as he could get that airplane out of there within 16 hours, he didn't have to pay anything because of
Mhm.
international law and stuff. So he used that. So for not many years, at 20 years or so, if I was bored or didn't have anything to do, I would just go and buy a ticket and go to and see what I could get into because man, you was so
Mhm.
easy. And the other thing Freddie Laker did, he was represented in New York. The before the EU, the railroad was totally interconnected. What's you
Oh
could
yeah, 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 yeah.
before the EU, before any of that, you could
I
get
remember hearing
you
that.
could get on a train in London, and it would take you to Swansea, and the train would roll onto a ferry that
Yeah,
would take you over to that part of France,
yeah.
and it was no big deal. Meaning, soon as you got on that train, you were on like a envelope, like you could go to many different borders, and you didn't have to stop and show your papers. And this was before.
Mhm.
And they might have had the central economy or whatever, but they were kind of the EU just didn't come and they had little different. But anyway, so I would do that, and it was great because usually at the time I would do that, part of my little equation was looking at what the dollar was worth in Europe. But in the 70s and 80s, man, the dollar was king by
Mhm.
a lot. And so, I would just roll in with $500 in my pocket, return ticket, that was kind of open and see what I could get into. And
Mhm.
that's when Europe was loads of fun. And everyone was dirt poor. I mean, there
Mhm.
were rich people who lived in Monaco, blah, 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 but
Yeah.
the majority of everybody was dirt poor.
Yeah. Now you have this new money, fast money.
Right.
Yeah, dirty money.
Useless money
Yeah.
because you're basically a gangster.
Yep.
And whenever you look at a gangster movie, that's these people go rob a bank and they have 60 grand. What do they do with it? They invest it. They do anything interesting with it? No, they buy drugs or go to Las Vegas or whatever. And
Yeah.
that's kind of and that's why our economy is going to the dogs, or not even. What's the worst animal than going to the dogs? A worm? No, that's
There's no bad animals. Are you kidding me? They're just going to the anus of the world.
and okay, that's it. That's what I was looking for. Going to the anus of the world, and that's
That sounds like such a child explanation.
no, but what the other side of the coin is? That's like dissing the anus.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
the
yeah,
anus
yeah,
is a
yeah.
good
And
thing. It's
and
doing
they're
its
working their
job.
way out like a bad sandwich.
Right, right. And so it's so this and there's too many unknown things to say. Oh, this can't go on any longer.
Yeah.
I said that back in 1969. No, this can't go on any longer. But I was at a place where I was being shown. I mean, when I was at the UN and we started this really amorphic NGO called Alternative Technologies. That's a pretty wide swath of everything.
Yeah.
And because we had UN NGO and UNICEF is yeah, where were these guys? We went to conferences that were off the hook. I went to this one conference that basically said they, all the oil companies weren't just they were the low man on totem pole of the corporate fascist world that already existed, right? And
Mhm.
pretty much existed since the Holy Roman Empire.
Mhm.
And I went to this thing, and there were guys with like Pope hats on, and all not just guys in business suits. There were all these, and they were smart people.
Mhm.
And the people I came with, I said, "What is going?" And they said, "Okay, we're now here. We can kind of let you in on this." And they said,
Yeah.
"This is the way it is, and all of the other stuff is the illusion." And this group of people here who pull all the strings, and they're just the administrators. These aren't the people in power, you know. And these guys I was at this conference with, no one even knew existed. Like I said, there were bishops and cardinals and CEOs of this part of GM, and it was a very strangely mixed bag. And
Yeah.
there were women and people of color in there too.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized it's not gender, it's not color, it's this class thing. And it's
Yep.
not even a class of how we think about class.
Mm.
I would say the closest you get there, and this is why the royal family exists. And England's not the only one
Yeah.
They are, you know, the alien race.
Yeah.
And so that's, so my exposure at these conferences was, because they were going on about exactly what's going on now and how they were going to deal with it in 2030,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah.
so it's and most people, again, if people knew about any of this, and that's why the conspiratorial thing they let out all over the place, because all those conspiracies theories out there, like David Icke and guys like that,
Hmm.
there's a lot of truth there.
Yeah, but it's not like
What's going on?
precisely.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more a smokescreen to what's going on.
Yeah, I totally agree. Like archetypes.
Right, exactly. So we can, like, oh, look at that. Yes, I'm getting a jolt off of that. Yes, okay, it's
Yeah.
right.
And it's really like a perception as well. It's like it's a perception you can smell on
Yeah.
people.
Yes, it's more the smell than what it looks like.
Yeah.
Our sight is very easily hoodwinked.
Yeah. Because I've always noticed that. Like when I was young, I would say, "Oh, I have a very business mindset," and you can run a business and not have a business mindset and be successful
Right.
because you're hardworking and
Right.
smart.
Yep.
Or you could have a business mindset because it's in your DNA,
Right.
and you can just smell it and taste it and create it. And I feel like that's the same thing with anything. Is if
Right.
you tap into that energy, it's recognized both ways.
And I would say having a business, using the term business sense, is not. There has to be a better
Yeah.
word, because
Well,
business
I was
sense
young. That was
really.
what I would say before I left high school.
What was that?
I would say that before I even left high school. I don't say that anymore.
Right. No, but it's what you just said is true.
Yeah.
But it's missing the proper nouns and adjectives. But
Yeah.
when you said smell, that is it. Smell is our most important sense, but we really give it a short shift because the powers that be don't want us to realize it. Man, you can smell this shit.
That's so true because pheromones and
Yes.
our body is constantly sending signals to each other,
Yep.
and we don't even realize
We
it.
don't even realize it. Yep.
And dogs, like how Jeff was like, he just knew my pheromones, and he just knew that I was his soulmate for
Right.
forever.
Forever.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's why he allowed himself to wear that funny body.
Yeah. Exactly.
And he was trying to tell you that he had a limited time on this earth.
Yeah, I've had I get a lot of prophetic dreams, for lack of better words.
Right.
And I did have a dream where I took him to the vet, and it wasn't, why would I have a dream about him going to the vet? Because he's healthy.
Right.
So.
And this is before he passed.
Yeah, before, and in that same dream, that dream told me about how my year would go.
Right.
It was telling me how I was going to travel on my own and with Jeff, and how everything around me would be falling apart, but we would survive. And it showed me what's ahead of me, like growth, green, and abundance, but I'm in the desert. And then it showed me like specific like flowers and like objects of that kind of symbolize places I went. And it was crazy because these things would unfold, and I was like, oh my god, it literally told me that was going to happen.
Right. And that's the same thing with that thing we were discussing earlier about taking a big breath as you're walking through your everyday and listening to God. It's the same thing. It's that same energy, that same smell, the same taste.
Yes.
It's all of the above.
And I'm getting so much better at that because my body has always sent me such strong signals, and as you know, our last talk, but also it's also getting very instant, and so I get chills constantly. I'm getting chills, or I'll get like, my intuition has been so strong that I feel like I'm gonna puke if I don't listen to it. Yeah. It's like literally it shuts down my organs,
Right.
if I don't. and so, but it's true, and I've always known it's true, but it's the whole, like, you're walking that invisible bridge, that story of you take that step off
Yep,
the
yep.
cliff, then you don't fall.
Right. And then you see the bridge under
And
your
that's,
foot, and then you need to take the next step, the next step.
yeah, and that's exactly what I've been doing, and it's getting stronger and stronger, but the current's getting stronger as well, so the crash can be a bit more painful, but it's so funny because um I keep listening to my intuition now even more than before, and it's amazing things. Like, I just, my life has really become so amazing. At the same time, there's extremely painful moments,
Well, the
but
other sign you have to remember, and this is what memory is good for,
yeah.
your earlier life was also amazing.
You mean in this lifetime?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. In this
Yeah.
lifetime, when you were a little
I,
girl, when you were a teenager, when you
yeah.
went to England, the first days there before you met
Yeah.
Ollie.
I mean, it's my whole life. I've had so much trauma, but it's like, so what? Like, it's so beautiful, and I've seen so many like, it's like holding a crystal up to everything. You can see all the different patterns and meanings and layers to it, and it's just all beautiful.
And you will be hit with that 2x4 until you realize you don't have to be hit by that 2x4.
Yeah,
You can see those
exactly.
pretty stars without getting hit by a 2x4. But most people, they're so stuck that to see those pretty stars, they have to be hit in the head with a 2x4.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also like learning to get out of my own way, but
Yeah.
also learning to step up, like deciding when is the time right,
Right.
and still getting used to that.
And that's more than getting out of your own way. I mean, getting out of your own way is just a teeny bit of the whole process.
Yeah.
Because you
Yeah.
really have to be the decider. That is the key.
Mhm. Yeah.
And not be the decider, oh, I want to shoot more heroin. You know?
Exactly. And I am admitting that, there's a lot of my life I've chosen substances
Right.
to make me feel better, and I still do, but it's like, okay, one of the things I really liked that Abraham Hicks said is, like, she's like, one guy asked her, he was like, so I get anxiety all the time. What does that mean? And she's like, you're just moving too fast.
Right.
And I'm like, holy crap.
Yep.
Like, that is exactly true, because I live in anxiety, but that's not a bad thing. It's just my compass. And now that whenever I start to feel anxiety, I'm like, okay, it's time to be present. What would Jeff do? Or what is this trying to tell you? Or let it go. Let it go. Don't think so hard. And that's made such a difference.
Yep. So these are all great, and we're still on the show. So I'm going to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and welcome to Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob. I hope you're enjoying this amazing conversation I'm having with the amazing girl, Miss Tag here.
Oh, thank you.
And to show that what is possible, amazing one.
Yes.
Tell the audience, kind of, without change the names to protect the innocent.
Mhm.
Where you were a year. So, have we known each other for more than a year? Is it been
I'd say we've known each other for a little over a year.
a little over a year? Okay, so you got a hold of me somewhere about this time, January, February last year.
Yeah.
And I think it might have even been December, because I don't know if
Yeah.
the war
It
had
could've-
even been on the horizon yet.
Yeah.
So since December, so give the audience a little 411 of kind of where you were, not so much in the literal sense, but in your developmental stage of your spirit, because you would, at least you told me, this was like your deepest, darkest depression, and I knew it wasn't that so much, but it was more confusion. Or so you fill in the audience kind of where you were in that understanding, and then how you just opened the door. And it's like when So I go to these 3 different churches for fellowship. I go to their Bible studies on Wednesdays and Sundays mornings, and Wednesday evenings, and right, and because it's much better than their stupid ceremonies. I don't want to do that. I'd be a hypocrite if I did that. But talking about the Bible is, and these guys have read it a lot, but they haven't thought about it a lot, right? So I don't go and tell them that they're wrong or anything. I just give them homilies about what we're going on about, and they're all going and been doing that for a good year or so. So, you were kind of in the same kind of thing. I just gave you little stories, and then but you. So those guys talk about being born again, right? And they don't really. They may have had a singular experience when someone died, or they had their first blowjob, or whatever it was. That's not it, because born again is like every nanosecond of your existence here. That you don't have the past, you don't have the future, just have this moment right here. That is the born again moment you have. And if you're doing that, then you're working in the right direction. And if you read liturgy, all the homilies talk about how Jesus is waiting by the doorway and just have to open it up and he's going to come in and you're born again, right? So you had a similar type of experience, but it wasn't it wasn't like I was that door opening, or even Jeff being that door opening.
Yeah.
Jeff and I were tag teaming you.
Yeah.
And you also had other influences there, not as strong as Jeff and I, but
Oh yeah.
other character actors in there. So
Yeah.
I'm going to shut up, and I want you to describe that from that period to this period in those major 20 or so moments that you realize, oh yes, I got to keep doing this, and I'm not just going to, and because you kept doing certain things, that was a trap from you moving forward, right?
Oh yeah.
So give the audience a little taste of, and this is why she's tagged, because she was able to do this. Most people can't even do this in a lifetime, right? And most people haven't had the kind of trauma she's had. And so take it away. Amazing one.
Okay. Let's start from the beginning. No, I'm kidding. The beginning of the beginning. Well, I got there when I was 19 to London, and I was totally in this free spirit, confident. I was just on the bob, on the 2020. I was bumping into celebrities left and right. Not that that's important, but if I thought, for example, I wanted to meet these YouTubers, and they happened like that night to be in London, and we bumped into them at the club. Things like that would happen all the time. I met soulmate best, going wonderful, and then I got into a relationship, and it kind of fogged my head, and I got stuck in a 9-to-5 job, and then but one thing about me is my growth is inevitable. That's something that I cannot help. I'm always growing. I have like a deep desire to grow, and it's also innate. And even though it can be stagnant at times, it's almost like it'll just pull me back even more with a faster speed, like a bow and arrow. And yeah, and it's growth is like, it's sometimes it burns, it burns off layers like the earth, like a volcano, but there's new growth, and it makes the land more fertile. And so I had so many beautiful experiences. I helped people in my job. I got a degree, and I got Jeff, and because I had Jeff, I had to walk him, and I found out from our walks that we were surrounded by these woods that have been there for thousands of years, untouched, with Roman ruins and fairy circles, and it was just, I would just walk into deer and just have the most magical experiences. And during this whole time, I did pray and hope for people to come into my life that understood me and I could connect with. And at the same time, I pursued people. I would find people who are more into metaphysics online, and I made amazing friendships. And little by little, like a drip, it kind of got more and more. And because I was still enjoying my life, and I was helping the people around me, like my ex, I helped get him out of his issues, and other people, but also
So what were the pitfalls? In that period, we talk a lot more than we do now, and it was like you were, yes, you were in the magical forest, but there was the bog and the tar pit and the
oh
bears.
yeah.
Yes. So
And interestingly enough, I study a lot of mythology and lore, and they're coming to find that a lot of the mythology is it's metaphor for, you go into the forest. So there's so many stories where the main character goes into the forest, but it's like a journey, and it's like you said, you go through the bog, but you also have extremely like celestial, beautiful moments that you can't put into words, and that's exactly what I was going through physically, mentally, spiritually. But I think my biggest problem was that I put myself underneath my ex, and I was so scared to lose him. He was abusive verbally.
so
And
what do you think manifested that? Why did that? I mean, you had a little bit of that from your earlier years, right?
yeah, yeah.
Was it
Well,
that was just
I think so. I think because I'm like our developmental years up until 5, 6, 7. Well, really up until 5, help to structure our brain. And if I've gone through so many experiences growing up of different fathers, and they all sucked. All of them. They all sucked in very different ways. Like I tasted every kind of trauma that you could from a man, and I didn't realize until recently that I was scared of men. And so what did I do? I found a guy that I was scared of. And not only was I scared of him, I tried to fix him, which is the two big no-nos in a relationship. And it was just, it ruined my confidence. But it was also the perfect combination of things to make me realize this, because I'm not the kind of person who is like, oh, I see what I did wrong. I'm the kind of person where I get punched in the face and go, okay, I needed that punch in the face. Thank you. And not anymore. I used to be. And, but also that when I started to get into psychology.
Did you feel instead of I needed that punch in the face, I deserved that punch in the face?
And that's why I love psychology, is that it shows people that we all want really dark, fucked up things. We just don't know it.
Is that base from self-loathing? And where does
Uh,
that self-loathing come from?
yeah, I think because I'm still working on it, and that's the whole like, what do I deserve? What am I worth? Am I worth begging for attention? Is that where I see myself and self-worth? And so I think it comes down to all of that. It's a combination of self-worth and fear and what I'm focusing on, and lack. It's just like, oh, any kind of love is the best kind of love. Like I didn't realize, and it really wasn't until I read a romance novel that I realized what love could be like.
And so, what is the difference? So you tell me what you think the difference, and I'll give you a little thesis I got.
Of love.
Yeah.
Well, the difference. Well, the first time I just thought love was. I didn't know. It was a concept in my head. I wasn't really. I was loved, but I was more so protected from the bad shit that I was put through by the people who loved me. So it was an endless cycle of abuse and supposed love. But yet, so I thought love was just a feeling. But then I came to find that love is an action, and it's an experience, and it's a totally limitless vibration of like who we really are and who we can be. And it's limitless. Love is limitless. So no matter what you say or do, if someone truly loves you, they're not going to put you down, you know? They're not going to, yeah, it's okay if they leave. Yeah, it's okay if they don't want to be with you. But if someone really loves you, they're not going to make you hate yourself on purpose, you know, or use you, or so it's not going to be a game. It's just going to be open and understanding, and it's a feeling, but it's a different kind of feeling. Like, for example, I remember we had a really nasty argument, and I was so excited because I got these free tickets to like this yoga retreat. And I remember going to the retreat, which I got for free, and I should have been happy. I was like going to it trying not to cry my eyes out because of the abuse I had just experienced before. And so I went from an extremely disgustingly toxic environment to a pure environment of love with thousands of people who were like teaching each other and helping each other. And I remember someone was like, oh, pull a card or pull a thing out of this big box of and the paper, and they're like, this paper represents. I read it and it said pure. And I remember feeling disgusting reading that. Like I felt like so much dissonance. I was like, I'm not pure. Like, and I think that was like the first indication where I really realized how I saw myself.
About self-loathing.
Yeah. I didn't think, how sad was that I didn't think I was pure.
Right. So
And
what do you
so,
think about my little thesis is the real problem of love is that, and also the problem of this world and what humanity is doing with it is it's a world of duality and separation. And the real issue is the only thing that truly exists is love's co-creation, which is unconditional. Whereas
yeah.
everything in this material illusion world is conditional. I'll love you if you do this. And oh, by the way, I'll love you if you do this, but I will try and get over on you.
Yeah.
And that's why, so that's why we think we're not worth it because we allow ourselves to go through that, for some reason, continually over and over and over again. And then you take that self-loathing and then you plug it into your body, and then that's why people have body dysmorphia, or conscious dysmorphia, or I mean, where everyone's in dysmorphia of some type.
Uh-huh.
So how did you experience that motif?
Um Oh God. Well, I was really brought up in a lot of body dysmorphia, a lot of comparison, and never good enough. And I, even though I was always confident growing up, that it didn't come close to how I perceived myself. And I never like looked for a relationship. And I think part of the reason because I put myself so low, and that's something I'm even working on to this day.
Well,
Is
who put you, the innocent little infant? What was it? All of those different motifs of negativity that you were surrounded by?
yeah, for sure.
Because you were, and what's interesting to me that I've been reading about misogyny and gender issues is that, you know, in the beginning, when little kids are running around in kindergarten, girls are the stronger ones, the smarter ones, more capable ones, right? And the boys
Uh-huh,
are like cry, woo. But
uh-huh,
around sixth grade, hormones starting to kick in. That's when girls. I mean, that's this whole problem with athletics and schools. They want to you know um, you know do crazy things to instead of letting that kid just be that kid, they're being forced to be this, that, or the other thing, right?
uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
um, that's one of the problems of so soon as girls, because boys do not. So they get a little hair on their face and around their testicles and in their armpits. That's about it, and they get a little more horny. But it's not the kind of physical and cultural dynamic that girls have to go through.
Yeah.
Were you a late bloomer?
No, I was a very early bloomer.
Okay.
Yeah, that was difficult as well because I bloomed. I was literally in a situation where I was like always the girl like who was friends with the weird friends, and then all of a sudden in middle school I sat by the most popular girl in school and we became best friends, and then I sat at the popular table, and then my whole life changed. But then after that I hit puberty, and so I got bullied pretty bad for just being a woman.
Right.
Yeah. But
So who would bully you the worst, the girls or the boys?
oh, the boys. The girls wouldn't. There was only one girl who really was conniving, and she was almost sociopathic in the way she bullied me, but I got bullied by mostly a few guys.
So my battery is about to run out here. So I'm going to say good morning, good evening, good afternoon to all you folks still watching. How many are watching? One. AI is still watching. I'm trying to convince AI and the hidden hand it's time to hire us. They need a new advertising agency.
Yeah, I just don't want to perform.
No. I mean that's the new that if they really, it doesn't matter. Meaning we're not going to have heaven like snap of a fingers, but we can have a more workable system, right? And so those morons, they can be in charge. I don't want to be in charge, but they have to ease up on the psychopath thing.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully. I mean,
Well, see, that's the problem is that if they don't, that's the end of their business plan. I mean, what do they want? Keep doing it, or have this thing thrown back into the blender of karma and be squeezed out the anus on the cookie sheet of what we're next going to be,
Yeah, I mean, I will say these younger generations are going to give them a run for their money.
Oh, but they've been saying that forever. I've been around through a lot of generations, I was almost the beginning of the baby boom. I was born in 50. Baby boomers, I think, started in 46 or 47. So I'm like on the early, but my brothers and sisters, they, even though they were born before then, they really represent the boomer scene. And so that whole scene, and it was a different, lots of variety in the boomer class. It was just very large and very easily manipulated. And so if this new generation, all they have to do, they don't have to be, because I look at Greta, what's her name from Sweden, going to all these environmental things. She looks like to me as a plant.
I mean, is that a bad thing? Just kidding.
Oh, not a plant like in the earth, like a tree, but like what, within the parlays of control, they call the loyal opposition. It's like Mr. Rothschild in the 1780s found Marx and Engels in a jail in Germany, and he paid off their fines and took them to England and put them in a real nice house in the city of London and paid for their everything to write Das Kapital.
Yeah.
And constantly from that point on, turn it into a political party that it could be transnational, not just English, but everywhere. And that was his loyal opposition. Russia has been our loyal opposition all along. I mean, if we didn't pay their bills, they would not exist. So these are all the kind of historical, physical things that are also esoteric and spiritual in nature. So that's why they need a new advertising agent like us.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Because you look at all these morons, the usual suspects, Billy Gates and Elon. I mean, they kind of talk about that, and they have their soothsayer Joe Rogan talk about it. But again, I'm not against making $280 million a year. I mean, that's cool. But Joe, baby, if you're making 280 million, you probably could get along very nicely on about six, and the
Yeah.
rest of it, he should be pushing out there, backing every cultural, every media everything that is trying to voice a different thing.
Yeah, and I will say I do admire his. Nobody's perfect, but I do
Right.
admire his ability to. He's a lot smarter than he seems.
Oh yeah, but that's why
And
that's a comic.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I mean
Oh, heck yeah.
that is his. If on his resume, number one thing, he's a and he had. Did you ever see his TV show on NBC back in the '90s or maybe early
Fear
old? Yeah,
factor.
Fear Factor.
Yeah,
I mean, so that's his podcast is just that without people having to jump into slime.
yeah. I mean, he has given a lot of opportunities though for good people to be heard, and
Oh,
I
that's
would never
and
heard of them.
that's again, that's the whole process of the hidden hand. They let everyone be heard. I mean, listen, I'm
Mhm.
on YouTube. Yes, three people watch it, but I'm still there. We're having this conversation on the worldwide friggin' web.
Yeah,
So, 9 billion people could be watching this, but one, AI. AI, makes it real evident. As soon as I come on and the thing says you're live, bang, one comes up.
yeah.
I mean, like nanosecond.
Mhm.
It's not like some human is just waiting.
Yeah,
So yes, we everyone. So the powers that be understand that they need this kind of circulation of thought um, for them to be able to rule the world, right?
mhm.
But they have a lot of factions, their own little thing, and they just and there are these hiccups. I mean, you look at history. They have been doing this since Babylon in different forms, right?
Mhm.
And it really didn't get global until the Roman Empire, and then after that, every different, from the Greeks to the Romans to somebody in Europe to then the French, then the Germans, then the French, then the English, then the French, then you know the Scandinavians. So it has to become more the Federation, you know,
Yeah,
because if you really step back and look at Star Trek, that's a fascist organization.
yeah.
You know,
I can see what you mean.
they're a militarized, industrialized thing moving out. Meaning they're just yes, they have these rules and laws and try not to interfere, blah blah blah, but they always do,
Yeah.
and they never make it any better. I mean, so they give them instead of only having one kind of bagel that doesn't even look like a bagel, they now have 42. So yeah. So
Yeah.
what are you doing? Well, we're gonna wrap this up here. We don't have to wrap it up, but my as soon as my battery gets to a certain level, I kind of because I like to leave the platform without it being jarred. You know.
Yeah.
So, what is it? 1 or 2 o'clock where you are?
Uh, 12.
Well, oh, yeah, it's still almost morning. So, are you out of your jammies?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
The one nice thing about having um, a guy like Jeff in your life, it puts a certain level of order, and that's the sad thing. So all the tweakers around here, all the folk who come thinking they're rich
Yeah.
and they want to be a holler guide, they have a ton of dogs, and they don't let
Mhm.
them. They don't do anything with them,
Mm.
so they just roam
Yeah.
around and shit in people's house. I mean, all the dogs come into my neck of the woods, and I make them sit, and I get a chair, and I teach them, and I give them a doggy biscuit, and the people who own these dogs can't make them do anything. I've got the dogs, and they're real garbage dogs because these people don't really feed them. So I got it so the dogs don't come on my property. they wait right there on the line until I come and give them something. And their owners get upset. Oh, well, because they're morons. They don't even know how to treat their dog.
I know.
And that's the same thing with children. They don't, I mean, you
It's
got to
so
get a
true.
license for a car. You should have to have a license for a kid.
I mean, that would definitely go to hand, but I can see what you mean.
Yes, I mean, again, we're not there yet, but
Yeah.
so,
I know what you mean.
yeah.
I mean,
because then
yeah.
the state would help the parent do the best job, right? So I'm gonna you hold on there for a second. Hi there, gang. So I'm gonna wrap it up here on Dreamy Dreamland with Sensei Al Bob because my battery's just around that point. And so here it is, the 19th, Thursday. Remember to breathe. Go back and listen to all these shows, because they are all pretty strange. And I turned it on to this one guy, and he was thumbing through just the titles, and he stopped at "We all live in a Lego world," right? And that was like, I don't know, a year and a half ago. And he kind of, I was there on the phone with him, and he was watching it. And he was like laughing hysterically. So there's a lot of good stuff here. If you like this show, go back and look at some of the others and put them on some kind of mechanism because the internet is going to go bye-bye relatively soon. I mean, really relatively soon. And so if you have it on a thumb drive or a CD-ROM or anything like that, that would be nice. Keep a little history. And there was a he was in his 30s, who his name was Dragon, and he used to send me thumb drives. And then John Boy, I don't know what he did, ate them or misplaced them, or I didn't go. Anyway, but I didn't need them, but you do because I got a good memory. I remember what I did. You need to do it. So anyway, do all of that stuff, and you want to throw something on my PayPal, that would be great because I'm going to be on the BOP. I need money when I'm on the BOP. So you remember the Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, Dude Awake 42 at Gmail, and amazing one. You got any parting words for the kids watching the show, or AI?
Yep. I love you, AI, and I love you, everybody else, and I love myself, and I love my life, and I bless you all with more love every single day.
Oh, okay. So you stay there, Miss Amazing, and I'm going to sign off here, gang. Let's see how many. Oh yes, look at that. 2 hours, 22 minutes, and 22 seconds. Later.
Adios.
Adios.